Welcome to the Cheat Code Corner podcast, season 2, sales edition, where we hit you with the cheat codes to help you advance in the areas that you care about. In this season, we will be interviewing master sellers and negotiators and key account directors. These are all people that have brought on tens of millions of dollars across their careers. These people know how to pitch. They're very persuasive. They're very charming. They're authentic. And the idea is we're going to be able to better understand what it takes to become a successful salesperson, how to do positioning, but more importantly, how to build these strong and deep client relationships. A lot of the information that they share, you'll be able to incorporate into your own day-to-day world, and hopefully that'll be able to help you win. All right, well, hopefully you enjoy the season.
Every sales role I've been in has really been hunting. You're always going to hunt no matter what, but you kind of pivot into different roles. So from there, I went into actually tech, where I had like a couple hundred accounts I'd sell into. And then I whittled down to where literally I had one account for 7 years.
You put in 40 to 50 hours per week. You can't tell me you're not going to come in at 90% to goal, generally.
Oh, 100%, right. Because it's a numbers game. Keep reminding themselves that it'll eventually turn are the ones that are going to find success, right?
Yeah.
So just don't give up on yourself. I think sales, like when I was a little girl and I'm like, what do I want to be when I grow up? I was never like, I want to be a salesperson,
Yeah.
But now I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of it. I love it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest today. This person is one of the most successful salespeople I have ever encountered in my entire life. If not top 5, probably top 3 in terms of total revenue across her career that she's brought on. We're talking tens of millions of dollars. I'm sure her career earnings is way up there too. This person is an elite salesperson. I mean, what she does, some of the things that she does in terms of building out org charts, building out client relationships, immersing herself in terms of the clients, it's just different. And the outcomes of her actions are special. I am pleased to introduce a senior sales director, Kristin Watts. I am very curious though to know what made you decide to join the podcast?
Yeah, that's a good question. Quite honestly, I didn't know you. I know that we worked together, but I would see your post on LinkedIn. And I'm always one of those people that are trying to read, more information to understand my industry. And I found your post, and all the time you took to great content, really helpful. Hence we connected. I'm still learning from you. So that's how I'm here today.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And I got to tell you too, I mean, I've been following you, and seeing all the success that you've had and super impressed, because I knew when they brought you on, I had heard that you already had a good track record, and then you came over and then you kind of just blew everyone out of the water. And I want to learn from the best. And I was just curious because we've talked about it before, not tons of ladies in new business sales in particular. And so I'm interested to better understand the story. And so I'd love to know, how did you get into sales?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to be totally honest with you, I got into sales because I was broke. Literally, I was 21 years old. I got married really, really young and married a man that was totally comfortable with our situation. So I knew I had to change, right? Because I was bouncing checks and living paycheck to paycheck and services getting cut off. And at one point I had to borrow money from my parents. And that was kind of like a breaking point for me. And I'm working at a company that actually had a sales department. And here I am struggling, and I'm watching them pull up in really nice cars, and they're going out to lunch every day. And I'm thinking how do you afford that? They looked nice. So I was told, hey, if you go into sales, you have the opportunity, to make commissions. And it was really terrifying for me because at the time I literally depended on every single paycheck, but it also wasn't making ends meet. So I took the leap of faith, and here we are 20 plus years later, still doing the same role.
You said something kind of interesting about taking the leap of faith. So was it just a matter of the circumstances where you were you know what, I'm just going to kind of give it a shot. I'm seeing these other folks kind of living their best life. And so you just decided, you know what, why not try it out?
Yeah, because at the time, Damian, I didn't know whether or not I was capable of it. So it was so terrifying for me to make the decision and to leave a job where I was getting paid by the hour to hop over into sales where it's commission based. But I felt that I didn't have any other choice.
Mm,
So I took that leap of faith and dove all the way in and kind of
yeah.
figured it out as it went along, you know?
So what were some of the things, I mean, once you got into sales, I mean, what was something that maybe surprised you about sales or just about that role in general?
I was really surprised at how good I was at it,
Mm,
and how competitive I was with my own self. Because I was never like a sports person, more of the artsy type. But when I got into sales, I found myself wanting to like break my own records, and it motivated me again, because once I started seeing that success, right, and started getting my first commission checks, I, built a vision board of all the things that I wanted because I had nothing. So, as I bought my couch or my curtains, right,
yeah,
these
yeah.
things, I slowly, started taking it down. And I found that to be the most fascinating thing is how excited I was to accomplish these goals.
Yeah, isn't it interesting too? Because I mean, I didn't know that you were kind of like more on the artsy side, and so you kind of
Yeah.
sounds like you learned a little bit about yourself. Like it turns out super competitive. Turned out, you
Yeah.
just so you didn't really have. I mean, I think a lot of people have competitive spirit, but maybe you was it just you didn't know that it existed within this kind of like in the work life, or you didn't know how,
Yeah.
what extent you were going to be like super competitive.
Yeah, totally. Because again, I got married really, really young
Mm.
and I did college not the traditional way. So
What does that
I
mean?
went from high school and started working, right? And
Okay.
then I went to night school to get my degree. Yeah, so I didn't realize I had it in me until here's like my first real job,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's when I uncovered, oh, I'm really good at this, and I enjoy it because you get to connect with people and be human and real with them. And a lot of these people I developed relationships with, and I started to really care about them.
Mm.
So that was also another aspect that excited me about working is these relationships.
I was interviewing a friend of mine, and they said something very interesting, which was that there's a lot of different types of sales. I mean, most people know that there's somebody who works at Best Buy or Sears back
Yeah.
when Sears was a thing, or car salesman. But in software sales and what we're in, there's people hunters, new business sales, and there's people who could do land and expand. Sometimes people
Yeah.
just have 5 accounts and they have to go really deep. So when
Yeah.
you what would you say is the type of sales that you thrive in and that you prefer?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I've done it all. So I started my first sales jobs was collections. I mean, how brutal is that, right? Like I had
Collections.
to, yes, for student loans, I had to sell
Oh,
a government program. I know, right? Who wants to hear from me? Like these people have
that's tough.
avoided paying their student loans for 10, 15 years, literally. And here I am having to hunt and find out where they were, right? So it kind of felt like PI work and
Yeah.
trying to convince them, but then you learn their stories and you understand what their pain points are, right? So I found all that to kind of be fascinating.
Yeah. So wait, let me get this straight, Kristen. Your first sales jobs was collections,
Yeah, yeah, it was
getting people to pay
collections.
their college loan. Do you understand that that's probably
I
outside
know.
of selling credit cards, which I had to do, that is probably the most difficult level of sales ever.
Yeah, like no, for sure, like the most difficult. So
Yeah.
that was 100% hunting role. It was 100%. You pull up your bootstraps, you work
Whew.
as hard as you can, you smile and dial.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of numbers, right?
Wow.
But I found myself enjoying it because or trying to catch them at a different time, or oh, this didn't work. Well, maybe let me try to call their
Yeah.
brother-in-law. So
Yeah.
you kind of got creative with it, and then from there, it's every sales role I've been in has really been hunting. You're always going to hunt no matter what, but you kind of pivot into different roles. So from there, I went into actually tech, where I had like a couple hundred accounts I would sell into.
Mhm, mhm.
And then I whittled down to where literally I had one account for 7 years.
Wow.
So
Okay.
you have to learn how to not only hunt, but to go deep and wide. And quite honestly, that's the type of sale I love and I think I really shine at.
Could you talk to me a little bit about, and I know what you mean. I mean, most people know when hunting, hey, finding new clients or maybe what, but talk about what do you mean by when you say, hey, you got to go deep and wide in terms of like client relationships and whatnot? What does that mean?
Yeah. So when you have one account, and with this company I was with, I actually had the largest goal on the floor, and I had one account. It really requires you to understand the business. So you can't really like fake it, right? You have to understand like what are they selling? What do they care about? That's when you start learning about the business units, the people involved. The org charts are like really important, and understanding the structure. So that's kind of what I meant by going deep and wide. And then also, it's no longer about selling; it's really about a relationship building,
Right.
because these are your clients, which become your friends, and
Yeah.
you want them to win. And and yes, I'm in sales, but I'm not going to sell you something if I know I'm going to have to talk to you next month
That's it.
and it didn't work. I'm going to have to be honest and turn down business.
Yeah.
So it moves from being transactional
Yeah.
to smile and dial, get as many people as possible, to being more consultative and saying, hey guys, I really don't think this is a good fit for you. And I like that type of sale.
So I heard there was a rumor, and I had heard, of course, I had heard that you did well in your last company. I mean, I've heard you've done well
Yeah.
everywhere. And I didn't realize you just had one account. That's crazy. So you had the biggest
Yeah.
goal in one account. That's insane, by the way.
Yeah.
But I also heard that, most people in sales have to build out org charts. You need to know who's at the comp. But I heard that you build out insane org charts. I heard that you'll know several different people, dozens of people within an organization. You'll know their names,
Yeah.
birthdays. You'll know like a little bit of their blurb of life story. Is that true?
Yeah, it is. It's true.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Because I mean, these people become your friends, right? So you get to know them on a personal level. So you know when their birthday is, right? And that's part of sales, is like, yeah, it's relationship building. It's
Yeah.
right. So you know what they care about, what they like. You send them little trinkets, like think of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely have done that, made a career out of it. But that's just who I am as a person. I'm a gift giver at heart. I love being thoughtful. So that kind of just translate into my role now.
Yeah.
But
So you
another
bring that.
thing, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, so you bring that. I mean, like that's your authentic self. Is hey, I like to give, and then obviously you have your responsibilities. But you bring that authenticity to the clients, and you.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
do you? And I'm curious too, just from a tactical level. I mean, what does that look like? I mean, do you have like Google Docs, and then it's like
Yeah,
like a
I
spreadsheet?
do.
Is that what that looks like?
Yeah, I have a Google Doc, and I do the business unit, and I do the org chart. But also, when you're in this type of role, it's no longer about who are the decision makers. And I think that's one thing that I've done very well, is you want to learn and grow from everyone. So I don't care if you're ever going to spend a dollar with me. I still want to get to know you, because these are the people that will help you understand the business.
Yes.
So I would take clients out regularly, lunch, nails, get to know them, that never spent a dollar with me at all, nor did I know would they ever. But they
Mhm.
gave me information and intel, and they allowed me to like pick my brain, right? So I would, hey, what do you think about this? Or does this make sense? And they're like, oh yeah, totally. Here's the person.
Mm.
At that company I worked with for 7 years, I made friends with the front desk lady. Pam, love her. Anytime I would drive into Houston, I would make sure I catered her lunch. I would take care of her. She texts me to this day. She's always like, hey, how are you and the kids? And like that's what you want to do. And that's
Yeah.
how I like getting involved with the brand. I like to literally immerse myself almost as if I'm their employee, is how I kind of treat my business.
So it's kind of interesting too, because oftentimes, when I hear a lot of folks, whether they're like in account management or in sales, that a lot of folks talk about wanting to build these relationships, right? And I think in sales, it really, really is that. I mean, you have to have technical
Yeah.
acumen, you have to be charming and organized, and da 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 da. But I do think that there's this big important area of like where a lot of it is relationship building.
Yeah.
But I find that a lot of people, though, even though they like to do relationships, they don't want to do new business because
Yeah.
like, as much as this relationship, they don't want that same type of number hovering over them.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, I haven't in my career in sales. I'll just say it's over a decade. I don't want to date myself too much. But,
Yeah.
I haven't encountered too many, ladies in new business sales, but the ones that I have encountered, they've been killers, just like you. I mean, they've
Yeah.
all been usually top-notch elite, I would argue. And I was
Yeah.
curious to know, within your experience, I mean, how do you think we could bring in, more ladies into the new business fold? Given that it is relationship building, and a lot of folks like to do relationship building, regardless of if they're a female or a man.
Yeah. I mean, I say give it a shot, right? Just like I did. You never know what you're capable of. And quite honestly, we all are our own worst critics. We all live inside our head and we have self-doubt. So why not just take a bet on yourself, right? And that's kind of my motto right now. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to bet on me, right? Because now I have a proven track record that I know I'm going to win.
Yep.
But I know that because I took that initial leap of faith. Never being a seller, never reading a book, not knowing anything about it. But I learned I have this innate ability. Like I have emotional intelligence. And I'm not saying that men don't, but sometimes I've been in conference rooms filled with men. I'm the only woman. I could feel the energy. I could see it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's like all the cues are being missed where I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
So I've kind of honed in on that. So I think that's one of the things that I do very well, but I'm not just saying that this is unique to women because it's not. I met men that are incredibly as emotional intelligent.
Yeah.
But I feel that with women, we have a superpower and just try it out because it can change your life. Like hands down, it's a game changer.
Game changer. It's actually, it's very interesting. You actually you kind of lead it into my next question because you mentioned the superpower term, and I am curious to know. I mean, the emotional intelligence. I see that. I've seen a couple things as well from you, but I'm very curious to know, like, what do you think is your superpower?
Oh man, I mean, quite honestly, I would have to say it's my tenacity, and I don't know if it's because of my situation, but I went from broke to single parent to I just depend on myself, right? But I've always had this ability, even as a kid, because my parents always tell me, like, my statement when I was little is they would tell me something. I would say, I gonna, right? So I kind of to this day have that attitude, like, yep, I'm gonna do this, right? So just my perseverance of just not giving up and working hard and my empathy. Like, I think you need to be empathetic.
Yeah.
I think you need to be humble and ambitious. I see that as one of my superpowers. I'm incredibly ambitious is the word I like to call it.
Ambitious, yes.
Yeah, because you got to blend the two, So that's kind of how I've lived my motto and kind of take that with me wherever I go. Work hard, and everything will come into play.
Well, I mean, listen, I could totally see those. I would argue also, in addition to that, I mean, like your ability, first of all, the decks that you create, I saw some of your decks, and I've only been self-conscious twice when it comes to decks.
Yeah.
Leanne's, I saw one of Leanne's decks that made me feel very, very inadequate. And I saw one of yours that made me go back to the drawing board because it's like, oh my Lord, I need to improve. So I would argue the way you present a lot of the content in your decks is fantastic. I would also say your orchestration is probably unmatched. I mean, I think one time when we had a conversation, you're like, yeah, I know the product, but like, I know how to put pieces together to like that. Listen, to play an orchestra, I mean, to be able to do that, that's a skill, that's a Steve Jobs type thing, right? He wasn't an engineer, you feel what I'm saying? But he knew where to put the pieces. And that's important too, I would argue.
No, for sure. I mean, I like to say that I'm a point guard, right? Like I'm in sales. I'm not supposed to know it all. I'm not going to be the most technical person. We have amazing people we can leverage as a seller. My job is to like, okay, who am I going to punt the ball to, right? But also it's important that we learn how to tell stories because the people we're selling to are smart, right? And the way that technology has advanced, people are sales avoidant, self-informed. We all have our phones at our fingertips. Yes. So a lot of these decisions are being made without sellers. So part of I do It's how can I bring you value, right? How can I position myself where I'm consultative, where I really understand and care about the business? And then from there, I can find out where the gaps are.
Yeah.
And I never want to go in all at once, right? Because that's like intimidating. It's like I kind of like to reference sales to dating, So if you go in all at once, you're like, well, I'm out of here. That's scary.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you go
Yeah.
in with little pieces at a time, it's not so scary. It's palatable, right? And then that's when you kind of start building those relationships and you become more and more embedded. That's kind of
Yeah.
how I've always done it.
As I've gotten older and worked with sales, I mean, and this is so true. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's like, I have this idea now. It's like what's good for the client ends up being good for me.
For sure.
Right. You know what I mean? Like it truly is that. So you can, like you said before, you can turn down cash and be like, hey, you know what? X and Y client, I really don't think you should do it. I really think you should, use somebody else or try another vendor.
Totally.
Like, don't do this or don't do that. And I think in the end, even if you may lose in the beginning, down the road, like they see you, they appreciate that stuff.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
There are so many times where I'm like, oh, I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth, because, when you're in sales, it's a rat race. It never ends, right? Even if you have an amazing year, it's like, what are you going to do next year?
Yeah.
But I have these moments where I'm like, I'm sorry, but we aren't the best fit. If this is what you're trying to do, I want to set expectations that this may or may not work, and 9 out of 10 times they're respectful and they're like, okay, thank you. Right.
Yeah. Well, you have to,
and then you get referrals.
And then you get referrals, but you have to, I think that's the switch. Like this is no longer in terms of sales. Like I tell a lot of clients too, and people that I kind of work with, I'm like, look, people can buy, there's multiple good vendors on the market. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you want a car, you can get a BMW, an Audi, a Mercedes. Like they're all kind of good. They're all good. Right.
Yeah.
So then why would they want to buy from you? Right. So like when I talk to clients, I educate myself on the market, on their product, on competitors, and I just lay it out on the table. Like, look, they do well like this, they do well like that.
I love that.
Yeah. And then they,
so smart.
Yeah, you just laying it out on the table. And I tell people when we're crappy at something, it's like, look, man, we don't get the job done here, so don't do it, or do it with someone else. But I think that's the value that you were talking about. I think,
so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I read a book on that where it's, you got to be open and honest. And then if you tell them, hey, this is what we're good at, or, hey, we don't do that, then it almost resonates even more trust because you're not hiding anything from them, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if it's too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
It usually is. That's with anything in life, you know? So yeah, I love that you do that. And it reminds me that I need to do that more, or even if they're using someone, I'll say, yeah, they're great.
We've been talking a little bit about, like superpowers and what makes, salespeople good and not, but what would you say, like, why would a salesperson struggle? And I'm not talking about just like not hitting for a quarter, but I mean, like, what would make somebody struggle or just kind of like not be successful in sales long-term?
Honestly, I think not believing in yourself. I've seen so many people that come in that have the potential, right? Have this personality and they're smart, but it's hard. Yeah. And I think you need to set realistic expectations. It's going to require work, right? I'm a mom. I use analogies. Think about a field. You're plowing that field. Yeah. You're giving it love. You're in there. You're watering. It's not bearing fruit. You're frustrated, but you don't give up, right? So I think the people that can just plow through it and keep reminding themselves that it'll eventually turn are the ones that are going to find success, right?
Yeah.
So just don't give up on yourself. And hey, there are times where, and I'm sure you've seen them too, Damien, where you're like, oh, bless your heart, they try so hard, but maybe sales just isn't for them. But at least you give it a go and you find that out,
Well, so here's the thing, this may not be as popular to say, but like, I think there's a framework to sales where if anyone follows it, they could be successful. Whether or not they will be happy, whether they'll be happy doing it, that's a different story. I mean, if you're being, like you said, if you're being creative, if you're going deep with clients, if you're educating yourself on the product, on the competitors, if you're honest and authentic, and you work consistently and you put in 40 to 50 hours per week, you can't tell me you're not going to come in at 90% to goal generally.
100%, because it's a numbers game for sure. It's a numbers game.
So,
but to your point, will you be happy? Right. I think sales, like when I was a little girl and I'm like, what do I want to be when I grow up? I was never like, I want to be a salesperson,
Yeah.
But now I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of it. I love it. It's changed my whole compass, like what I'm able to do for my children's. And to your point, I enjoy it. So it's like an outside of sales, then now I can afford my passions. I can.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like change your perspective, and then your view on things change. So
I don't know. I like that. If I just said, "Hey, Kristin, let's go to Indonesia next week."
Let's go. My bags are being packed right now.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like that's nice. That makes me happy.
Exactly.
That makes me happy.
It feels good because I was like 20 years ago, I was in a position where if you would be like, let's go to Indonesia, I'd be like, there's no way. I can't even
It's impossible. Yeah, it would be
impossible. Yeah.
So then speaking of travel, kind of in some ways, this is a weird pivot, but I mean, so where do you've had a tremendous amount of success. I actually have a question about that too, and hopefully it's going to get a little bit personal, but not too personal.
Okay.
Number one about it is where do you see like your career in sales and how that's going to develop? And then I want to know what was the best thing that you bought yourself or treated yourself to last year, or just in general.
Okay. Where do I see myself? So often there's times where I'm like, oh, I want to be a manager and I want to teach people what I know. But quite honestly, I probably, if I'm being honest with myself, I'll be an IC until I retire. But that will give me the opportunity to retire where I'm still young enough to travel.
Correct.
So I'm just going to grind it out until I'm ready to take that trip to Indonesia and not come back. Right.
There we go. You could probably do that already right now, but we know that you had some very good years.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how did you treat yourself?
Well, the first thing I did is actually treated my parents. I bought them a brand new car.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah. Nice. That's great.
I haven't had a new car since I was a little girl.
Wow.
So it was kind of funny because my son was turning 16 and I was looking at cars and my dad made a comment like, wow, those cars are really nice. Like most adults don't have cars like that. And then it got me thinking like, he's right. So I set up this scheme with my son. Like, I'm going to pretend like this is your car. Grandma and grandpa are going to be in the dealership. They're thinking it's for you, but really it's for them. Wow. So we pull up and this car has a big bow on it. And my parents are filming Joe and I'm filming them. I'm like, no, it's for you. And they're like, oh my God. So I think that was the coolest thing I did last year by far.
I love that. Very cool. Very cool.
That was cool. It felt really good to do that for them.
Yeah, no, I wish I could. Well, my dad just bought a car, so I ain't buying him anything. But I need to get them like put them on a vacation or something like that.
Sure.
I haven't had as much success as you, but I did probably the biggest thing that I did was like it was experiential. So like I went to San Diego for a month, while working, and so I still had my apartment in New York but I was in San Diego and it was great. I mean, I loved it. I loved the experience. I loved the sunshine. I felt really good about it. And I love being able to kind of do that for myself. I mean, it's I feel very blessed for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. To have the option to spend a month in a different city and double it. I mean, you're totally blessed for sure. It's awesome.
For sure. And that's like, it sounds weird, but real talk. I mean, with cheat codes, I mean, what I'm trying to extract and speaking with people like you is like, if we can just articulate and pull and share some of the exact things that we've done to be successful. Like you said, I mean, not just being like authentic and having empathy and having the hunger and tenacity, but, also going deep with the clients, understanding who they are, making friends, like all those things that come together, what it takes. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's what's so great about your podcast is that real people can listen and learn. Because I remember, I mean, it's so funny. I thought about this the other day, way before I got into sales. Me and my friend were talking about jobs, and she's like, "Oh yeah, there's salespeople that sell ads in magazines, and they make so much money." And I remember thinking, well, how do they do that? Or how do you get into that? Or, oh, I can never do that. So giving people the opportunity to learn from real people that are doing it. And yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks. No, I appreciate that. Now we're kind of coming towards the end of the program. So you know what I mean? This is a section. It's one of my favorite ones. It's called power sections, power questions rather. And so it's basically a rapid fire, and it's designed, it's a few questions. It's designed for us to better understand who Kristin is and get a little bit of peel back the curtain or whatnot to better understand things about you. All right. So let me know. You ready? You ready for the questions?
I am ready.
All right.
Cool. Here we go.
All right. So number one. How many hours of sleep do you get?
Oh man, like 8 to 10.
8 to 10? Okay.
Yes, way too many. I'm 8 hours or it doesn't feel right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food?
I love all food. It really just depends on what mood I'm in for, but like I can eat anything.
What do you mean you like all food? You like seafood?
Oh yeah, I love seafood. I love Indian food, Mexican food, Chinese food, you name it. Like it just depends on what am I craving or what cheat day do I want to have, you know?
Well, what don't you eat then? There must be something you don't eat.
Oh yeah, like anything like, you know, pretty too weird, you know, like chicken feet or I probably.
What do you mean? My parents eat chicken feet all the time.
I don't know. Like it just, I don't know if I can do it. Like sometimes you see those things in jars, you know?
Yeah, with the little claw.
I don't know if I could do that.
Right.
Yeah, or like Anthony Bourdain, some of the stuff, like what he used to eat on the streets. I'm like, how does he do that? It's fascinating. So those street foods, probably not in it for me.
Gotcha. So tell me about like a sport or some type of physical activity that you'd like to try that you haven't, and why would you like to do that?
I want to try like the paddleboard yoga. I think that looks amazing. I've never tried it. I'm a huge yogi, so I want to see if that balance kind of transfers on the water like that.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Core work. That must be tough. I heard with that. Like I can imagine.
I want to try it so bad, but where I live, it's not really offered. So next time I'm on a coast, I gotta try that.
That's right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What's your favorite activity to unwind?
I mean, hands down, yoga. There's sometimes I go twice a day, like just depending on how intense the day was. But I live my life by that because it's like a workout for your body, but your soul and your mind, and you just leave feeling so peaceful and worked out. So yeah, for sure, yoga.
You usually do yoga in the mornings or at night, or when do you do it?
Yeah, like I'll do a 6 a.m. or like lunchtime. I've been trying to block out so I don't get so sucked into work, or a 7 p.m. class. So it just depends.
All right, cool. And the last question is, what are you reading or listening to?
I'm actually reading a whole bunch of Gardner books, as boring as that sounds, but they just released some really awesome stats on like the future of sales and just like the tech with COVID and how it's changing the landscape. So just always trying to stay current. So a little bit boring, but geeky and fun, sales related. I'm reading that right now.
I mean, it's professional related. So, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, but it should be like, what are you binge watching? Because it's like I binge watch something new pretty much every day. But yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm reading a book on the hidden brain, which most people would be like, that's not very sexy either. You know what I mean?
What is it?
It's the human brain. It's basically like the parts that allow you to kind of go on autopilot. So, you know, for instance, if you ever go a full day and then you kind of wake up at 7:30, like, oh, like, how did I do that? So it's like the part of the brain that enables you to be able to do all those things. And what it's talking about is sometimes that part can be wrong or can like take over. And so that's why sometimes people may like shoplift on accident, or they may like, you know, you ever say something really crass on accident. You're like, why the hell did I say that? Like sometimes sometimes it's like that part overpowers the existing conscious brain and kind of like throws things into whack. So it was basically so it's basically talking about being mindful and like, it's encouraging us to be mindful and have grace for when people do dumb stuff. I guess that's what it seems like the point of the book is.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it is. Well, cool. Well, listen, Kristin, I'm curious. Last thing is, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you just to maybe learn or ask you some questions, what would be the best way to reach you? Is it like LinkedIn, or is there
for sure. Yeah, LinkedIn. And I mean, sharing is caring in sales, and not a lot of sales reps will do that. But
I know
I'm an open book. If you want to learn or know, I mean, ask me. I actually really like helping people out. So definitely LinkedIn is a good way.
I can speak to that too, folks, because she has shared with her these amazing decks. She can't share with you the decks, but we work together, and she has been very, very, you've been very cool with being able to share that. So I appreciate that. Well, this conversation has been so fantastic, Kristin. I really appreciate you. I knew the convo was going to be good, and you were going to be selling some goodies. So I feel good about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What's good, fam? Hopefully you enjoyed Kristin Watts' episode. Kristin, like, I got to tell you, the things that Kristin does results in special things happening. So whether or not you think you can replicate some of the things that she does or not, give it a try, because if not guaranteeing good things are going to happen, at least you're going to put yourself in a better position to get the outcomes that you want. So there's a few things that Kristin kind of highlighted that I'd like to point out. So number one, she talked about the importance of building out org charts. Now you're building out org charts beyond the primary contacts. So what that means is obviously building out an org chart with the people you care about, but trying to understand if there are other people in the building or within the organization that you should, be connected with too. When you're building out the org charts, we need names, roles, what that person cares about, birthdays, kids, if they have, when was the last article that they wrote in LinkedIn, or if they, tweeted something or whatnot. The idea is to build out very special and deep org charts, because that's going to expand your understanding as to who are the movers and shakers within the organization, and also to better understand like how you can connect with them and build relationships with them. The second thing that Kristin talked about was the importance of building relationships. And she mentioned everybody in the building. Now, obviously that could be tough. So obviously what you want to do is start with the folks, your champions and your direct points of contact that you think are super influential within the process. But then you can work your way down as well. So maybe not just dealing with the VPs and the C-suite, but maybe the directors, the managers, the assistants, folks that, that are in the mud, the soldiers, but maybe don't have as much influence. And the idea is you can develop those relationships. They can provide insight and understanding as to what levers you can pull internally to help, move contracts forward, or just to help you to better understand the positioning or things that are going on within the company. The third thing that Kristin talked about was probably the most important and what she does the best: deep immersion. Essentially, almost becoming an employee for your top accounts. Now, I want to be very clear that you obviously can't do this for every company, right? So maybe you do this for your top 2 or top 3 or top 5 clients. Deep immersion, what that means is if it's a public traded company, buy stock for those companies. If there are products that they have, if it's Warby Parker you're trying to target, buy a pair of Warby Parker glasses. If it's a telecom company, and it's AT&T, then get on the AT&T plan. You really have to endear and ingratiate yourself within those organizations, build out the org charts, build out the relationships, and know everything about that organization. Be a historian for that organization. Know who's moving and shaking. Get the alerts through Google Alerts. Pay attention on LinkedIn. Know as much about that organization as you do about your best friend. Know more about that organization than your favorite artist, like The Weeknd. Know more about this organization than your ex. You got to really live, breathe, and eat on this for breakfast every single day. That's going to make the difference. The last thing, there was a couple of other bonus things that she talked about. They're all critical and important, of course. So just be mindful. Importance of being ambitious, which is a combination of humble and ambitious. Being relentless. The reality is you're going to have to put in the time. 40, 50 hours sometimes is not enough, but making sure that you're focusing on ROT, return on time. So the activities, it's not about just working hard, it's about working effectively. Another bonus was the importance of emotional intelligence. Listen, not everyone has that. So read books, by Malcolm Gladwell or Brene Brown about emotional intelligence. That's going to help you to become more empathetic, a better listener, a better person. And if you become a better person, you're going to become a better client advocate, which in turn, when good things happen for the client, good things happen for you. All right. Well, till the next time.